All right, everybody. Today we're going to continue our review. We're going to go with the Gunpowder empires today. And let me get this thing here. What we're going to have, all right, at this time, Islam has been birthed, and it has spread going over to the Indus River Valley and into North Africa, and even the Golden Horde, which we may talk a little bit about here at the end, up into Russia. And one of the things we're going to have is the Sunni and Shiite schism, where Muslims are all going to believe the same worship practice, but there will be a difference in who they believe the leader of Islam should be. Sunni Muslims, who is the predominant, the majority of Muslims in the world today are going to be Sunni. And they believe that the Caliph of Islam must be the best Muslim possible. Shia or Shiite Muslims, the minority of Muslims in the world today, primarily found in Iran and a little bit of eastern Iraq, believe it must be a direct blood relative of the Prophet Muhammad through his daughter Fatima. So this schism is going to destroy the idea of having one caliph to govern all of Islam. The other thing going on is Genghis Khan's army is coming out of China, moving westward. And when the Khan's army is going to break up into fourths, it's going to result in several different caliphates or caliphates at one single time in many different regions. And so to understand Islam, you've got to understand the difference between orthodoxy and orthopraxy. All right? Orthopraxy, all right, is how you practice your religion. It is your religious observance. So Roman Catholics, it's going to Mass every Sunday, recreation of the Last Supper, doing communion every week. All right? Now, you can be Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, Episcopalian. You're all Christians, but some people may do communion every week. Some people may do it once a month. All right? So it is the practice. You believe the same thing. You practice it differently. Orthodoxy is what you believe. All right? So, you all believe the same thing, but you practice it differently. Well, Muslims are united by orthopraxy. It's the 5 pillars, all right? That is for Shiite and Sunni Muslims, all right? The difference is their belief on who the caliph is. I hope that makes sense. That's just a quick, simplistic explanation. So we're going to have a couple different caliphates. We're going to have the Umayyad Caliphate over here in southern Spain with Moorish. Then we're going to have, for a time, the Shiite Fatimids in Egypt and in North Africa and part of Saudi Arabia. Then we're going to have the Abbasids up in here in Turkey, like Iran and Iraq. So anyway, again, the 5 pillars are going to be the same. The declaration of faith, the praying 5 times a day, the tithing to the poor, Ramadan, which is happening right now, and then the Hajj to Mecca once in your life, if you can make it. But it is at this time that it is when Sunnis begin to dominate the religion. There are more Sunnis than there are Shias or Shiites. And this is going to create that hierarchical class known as the ulama, where the ulama will be the religious and the political elites. What they are is like an Islamic bishop. They communicate and talk about things from prayer to crime and punishment. And what they want to do is keep everybody together, to keep everybody standard and level. So they kind of unwittingly become this upper social class, a respected, wise, religious upper class. It wasn't their intention, because all Muslims are supposed to be equal, but it just kind of happens that way. So they become this advanced part of society. When they had a religious question, everybody went to the ulama because, well, their word just carried a little bit more weight than everybody else's. So many of them will be advisors. And they also will create what is known as a madrasa, or a school of higher learning that will turn into an Islamic university. Going way back into the 800s, excuse me, when Charlemagne's idiot grandsons are writing the Treaty of Verdun, the ulama began to teach others. It was religious teaching, but it was also how to read and how to write and do mathematics when Western Europe was in the Dark Age, and this teaching becomes a permanent job. And there was no set curriculum. This is 9th grade, this is 10th grade, this is 11th grade. The teachers personally certified when you are ready to move on. So if we look in first period over here where we've got, Mariah and Leo of Peace, well, if Mariah was really good at essay writing, she could move on and graduate, and that way Leo and I, no offense Leo, your just name popped into my head, could keep working. It may take him another week or two or another month, so you don't all graduate at the same time. It is up to the teacher. And so it is at this time that we're going to get three different caliphates or caliphates. We're going to start over in the west in Spain. And in Spain, we are going to get a new type of culture known as Moorish culture. It's a blending of Spanish and Islamic culture. It's going to blend them together around the city of Cordova and Granada in Spain. All right? And here you are going to get the home of the Alhambra Castle. And at the Alhambra Castle, you're going to get not only a big mosque, but a madrasa, a school of higher learning in southern Spain. And it comes about because of a grandfather and a grandson, Abd al-Rahman I and the third. These two guys are there a little bit before our timeline, but they opened this university to not only Muslim, but Christian students. And they're able to make some great advancements in science, math, and technology up to about the year 961. And then after the death of Abd al-Rahman III, it coincides with the Spanish Reconquista, or the Spanish Reconquest, the Christian knights trying to drive the Muslims out of Spain. Going back to the famous El Cid story I told you guys that happened in 1050, right about before our timeline starts. But here is beautiful snow-capped mountains. Here is the mosque and the madrasa with kind of its red and white candy cane arches down in the basement. Statue to Abd al-Rahman I, and then here's the first and the third. It looks like it's the same guy, but it was grandpa and grandson. Kind of spooky that way. And then, this guy, he exists before our timeline, but I'm going to throw him in anyway. His name is Harun al-Rashid, and he is the Medicis to the Islamic world, a great patron of the arts and culture. But he was the Medicis before, Florence was even a big-time thing in the Renaissance. This is back in 750. And he is seen as a model ruler when Europe was trapped in the Dark Ages. He is the guy who helps with Ibn Battuta term the phrase Dar al-Islam, or the abode of Islam, where every land that Islam touches. And it's because of this Dar al-Islam, going from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Indus River Valley is a big, massive territory. And then the Crusades are going to be brought in. And so we're going to get a shift in cultural leadership where Islam, who was an Arabic-dominated religion, is going to fall secondary to a more Turkish leadership. Leadership is going to change frequently, and Sunni Abbasids are going to start the schism, their own kind of civil war, fighting Shiite Fatimids. And the first guys to start this as the first major Turkish dynasty are the Seljuk Turks, right? In 1037. They are able to liberate the city of Baghdad from the hated Shiites, and they're seen as saviors. So the leader of the Seljuks is given the title Sultan, which means temporary leader. Allah put you here temporarily to lead us. And the Seljuks keep going, and they're able to conquer most of the Middle East, including what is today Saudi Arabia and the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. And in so doing this, they come into contact with the Trans-Sahara trade route, the Gold Salt trade route, and even a little bit of Mediterranean trade. So they're going to have the Spice Road coming out of India, the Silk Road coming out of China, and the Trans-Sahara trade route. So remember, Muslims are always active in trading, East Africa, Kingdom of Aksum down here. So they are going to build new or improve old roads. They're going to have those water wells dug. They're going to have inns for trading to make it easier not only for trade and cultural diffusion, but for people to undertake the Hajj. And so this will bring us to my man Saladin and the Crusades. Now he is going to fight in the Third Crusade. He is the Arabic warrior. And he is able to conquer most of Mesopotamia, Tigris and Euphrates river valleys, for what's known as the Ayyubid Dynasty. And he's attacking the hated Fatimid Shiites in the Middle East and in Egypt. And then all of a sudden, his charisma and his battle strength is able to unite all of the warring Arabic tribes to do battle against the Third Crusade, against his main opponent, Richard the Lionheart of England. So here's Sir Richard the Lionheart, here is Saladin, and here is a battle scene of medieval knights and Arabic warriors where you've got 25,000, 30,000 guys slaughtered in one day. Saladin will defeat and drive out King Richard the Lionheart. And while that's going on, we are going to get a new dynasty. And this new dynasty will become known as the Mamluk Dynasty. And they are significant because they are the one, Islamic dynasty that stopped an invasion of part of the Mongol army. Everyone else lost but the Mamluks. And in 1240, here, just as the Crusades are going on, the Mamluk leader was a king named Baybars. And Baybars holds the Mongols, and he's able to redirect their armies to the Crimean Peninsula, where they were stopped in the Black Sea near the town of Yalta that they couldn't get into, where the Black Plague started affecting the Khan soldiers. So he catapulted the dead bodies into the town. You may remember this story. The town still wouldn't quit, so he said he would give them safe passage. If they left, they just had to leave. He couldn't be the first Khan to lose. He had to burn that town. The people get into their boats and they sail away, but they go to Constantinople, they go to Athens, they go to the Italian trading states, and they spread the plague westward. And a lot of it goes all the way back to China, killing people in Asia as well, if you remember the Black Plague video. And here's where things are going to change. Here's where two of the quarters of the Genghis Khan's army is going to go to war. In one quarter of the army, his grandson Hulagu is going to attack the Middle East. He's a Mongol. He goes in, worshiping the great blue sky, and he captures Baghdad. He destroys the city in 1258. He kills, virtually everybody inside the city, including the Sultan and his sons. He, however, did spare Jews and Christians, right? But he kills all the Muslims. And everyone was like, yes, Muslims are finally gone. This guy, Hulagu, is going to take them out. And then another army comes in, led by Burke Khan, Hulagu's cousins. Burke and his army had converted to Islam. And so they say, hey, you know, you can't attack them, they're brother Muslims. And Hulagu's like, whoa, you know, easy there, you know, and say, we're cousins. He says, well, I'm Muslim, you're not. So the two cousins fight, and Burke wins. He defeats Hulagu's army, who has to retreat back to Asia, and Burke's victory will sound the death knell, the breakup of Mongol unity. So, all right, at this point, all right, here are the names you hear, you know, today: Mecca, Medina, Mosul, Baghdad, Aleppo, Damascus. Here is Turkey. Here is going to be this territory in pink or salmon, the Mamluk Sultanate. All right, and so here we have this, you know, scary-looking gentleman is Hulagu. This guy here is Burke. They're the two guys that are going to do the fighting. There's another shot of old Saladin there. And so here's where we're going to get a new X factor. The guy Tamerlane, who is half Turk and half Mongol. All right. Now his army is going to lead the boomerang. Down here is Hulagu and Burke fighting. All right. The Mongols had come across. They had gotten all the way over to here, and now they're going to boomerang back on more of a southern line, winding up eventually in Delhi, in India, and over into Southeast Asia. And this is Tamerlane's army, and again, he is a guy that is bent on sheer conquest. He is not interested in Islamic conversion. When his army moves across the south, he leaves nothing but death, destruction, and pestilence in his wake. And he'll make it all the way over here to India before he dies in 1405. So as he dies, there's three caliphates. There's the one over in Spain and in North Africa. There is the Turkish one in the Middle East. And now there's this Mongol Turkish one going back into Asia and South Asia. And it's here where we're going to get Hindu and Muslims coming together. There's a clash between Hindus and Muslims. By 1350, Islam makes it to India. By 1398, it begins a fracture or a splinter in traditional Indian society. Hinduism is an old River Valley civilization religion. It, however, was mono and polytheistic. So Muslims didn't like this. And Hinduism also has that rigid caste system where you're born over and over and over trying to climb that ladder, getting to the next rung. So if you were in a low caste, you had to just suck it up and deal with it. Well, now Islam enters. And Hindus in the north are shoved out of important business and leadership positions, and they're regulated to being a second-class citizen. Because they're not Muslims, they've got to pay the head tax and more taxes. And so this is going to lead to the creation of the great Gunpowder empires, which is going to be a different video, or we'll do a little bit here. And these are the three empires that are going to go from the 14 to the 1500s that are going to become powerful due to guns, gunpowder, and cannons. And they're able to dominate much of Asia, from Turkey all the way over to Southeast Asia. And it is near this time that the Mamluks and Seljuks are going to mesh together and form the Great Ottoman Empire. An empire that's going to last from 1299, 1300 until the end of World War I in 1918. It is going to be the Ottoman Empire. All right, you remember Mehmed and Suleiman from absolutism, that in 1453 they finally conquer the great city of Constantinople and rename it Istanbul, something they had been trying to do since the mid-600s. And they're going to control territory from Hungary in Eastern Europe down to Saudi Arabia in the south, over into Egypt in the north. So this green shaded area, all right, all the way up into Greece, into Hungary, over Egypt, North Africa, all of this is going to be the Ottoman Empire. In the middle, in ancient Persia and a lot of the, like Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, is going to be the Safavid Empire, which is Shia or Shiite. Sunni, Shia, Shiite. Then over here in purple is going to be the great Mughal Empire, which is also, to think of Akbar the Great, which is also a Sunni empire. So it's this middle empire, you got to love that nice mustache right there, that we get the Shia or the Shiite dynasty that lasts from 1500 to 1736 in Iran. Sandwiched between Sunni, Ottomans, and Mughals. So as a result, they are normally always at war with one side or the other. But because they were right in the middle of overland Silk Road trading, they could use that. They could kink off trade and use it to their economic advantage. Now, the Indian Ocean trade was going on, but sometimes you just got to go overland. And so they were known to use it economically to help themselves out. And the Safavids were known to be tolerant of non-Muslims simply because of the trade routes that went through their territory. And last but not least, we're going to have the great Mughal dynasty of India. And it centers around that northern city of Delhi, up here close to the northern plain. And the most famous of all Mughal rulers is my man Akbar the Great, the warrior who starts leading and ruling through religious tolerance. Let's see what we have more in common than what we have that is opposite. And he is going to be this great leader. His descendants were spoiled rich kids. They didn't have the charisma or the intelligence or the ability to be leaders. And so they will blow their inestimable wealth. One of his descendants, Shah Jahan, was the richest man in the world and somehow blows it all, while allowing the growing joint stock company of the British East India Company to begin getting its claws and putting settlements into the shorelines of India. Now, one of the good things that happens during the spread from Spain all the way over to Southeast Asia is the fourth group of Muslims, the Sufi Muslims, who I'm going to say are the missionary Muslims. When Tamerlane or war broke out, they would go in and say, hey man, you need help rebuilding your barn, or you need help plowing your field or harvesting your crops, we'll be happy to help you. Hey, and let me tell you about my man, the Prophet Muhammad. They were also not as rigid, so if there was, let's say in the Middle East, a shrine to a different religious figure, oh man, I love Paul, the spreader, oh man, yeah, the spreader of the Christian religion. Paul's great, man, but let me tell you how that wraps in with Islam. Or, oh man, the Buddha, that whole eightfold path thing, thou shouldn't kill, thou shouldn't steal, that goes great with my man Muhammad. So they were tolerant and could work with local religions. They're able to repair some of the damage done by warfare. And it's during this time that great scientific and medical advancements are made. Here is, my man Akbar, and here he is sitting on his pillows with everything from Jewish rabbi to other ulama, Christian monks and bishops and priests, Confucians, Hindus, you name it. And here is my famous shot of the Taj Mahal, which is great, but it's what Shah Jahan went broke on, building the mausoleum for his wife. So this red shaded territory all the way down here to Indonesia, through India, up into parts of Russia and the Middle East is known as Dar al-Islam, the abode of Islam, where Islam has an influence. All right, tomorrow, guys, we're going to do a little bit of Russia, and Then we are going to move on and maybe do, you know what the heck? Let's just do Russia right now. If I can find it. I know it's late in the day, but why not? All right. Madrasa, Union Soviet Socialist Republic. All right. Russia is this massively big country running from the Pacific Ocean all the way over to Western Europe. And the Russian people are known as Slavic people, and they begin to settle in what is today the Ukraine right around 700 or 800. And they're going to mix with Vikings who are coming down the shoreways. They're going to get along very well with the Russian people, and they're going to build the great city of Kiev in the Ukraine, which is going to have a waterway link to ancient Constantinople. And the Byzantine Emperor, way back in 860, is going to send some missionaries into Russia, where they will convert to Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and they will invent their unique writing system known as Cyrillic. So if you hear it's all Greek to me, well, if you go to like Greece or over into Russia, you know, if you're in Europe, even if you can't speak the language, you can kind of figure the alphabet out. Over here, you can't do it. So this written language is going to build unity amongst the Russians, but tie them to the Byzantine Empire. And this is the part that I really wanted to get to. For our timeline, it's in 1200. And this is when one of the quarters of Genghis Khan's army coming out of Asia is going to turn northward. And they settle in Russia around 1236. And here, the Golden Horde will assimilate into Islam. And they are going to build their yurts. They're going to color them with this bright yellow that's shown in the sun. And they are going to be known as the Golden Horde for that reason. Now, as they come into Kiev, they're going to kill thousands and thousands and thousands of Russians. And then they settle down near what is today modern-day Moscow, where they're going to rule that area for about 250 years. And the Golden Horde were just brutal, tough conquerors. But once you were conquered, you were ruled fairly. And they are going to encourage Russian merchants to, instead of selling all their wares to the west, access a branch of the Silk Road. So the Golden Horde is going to give part of your access to trading just before the Renaissance. And so in the city of Moscow, the Russian nobles, the boyars, are going to be used as tax collectors. The Mongols are like, I don't speak your language, I don't know your customs, we'll let these nobles do it for us. And they are going to do so, and while they collect the taxes, they keep some for themselves, where they build with their own architectural style the city of Moscow, and convert or really bring about what is known as the Russian Orthodox Church, headquartered in St. Basil's Cathedral, which is now a museum. Now this was all good. The Mongols had been there, but man, they're a really long way from home in their base camp. So in the late 1300s, these nobles or Russian princes will lead a rebellion, and that will drive the Golden Horde out of Moscow. And they will take over as Russian rulers. Now this was led by one of their first czars, a guy by the name of Ivan III or Ivan the Great, who's going to reign from 1462, think of the age of exploration, up into the early 1500s. And he is this major impetus. He is the force that really shoves Russia's ascent to power. One of the things that he learned to do is not depend on the boyars, not on the nobles, those greedy tax collectors. And he tries to tackle all of these jobs himself. He's like Peter the Great, but Peter the Great, 200 years early. He is going to marry the niece of the last Byzantine emperor, and this will allow him to claim royal title. Tsar, C-Z-A-R or T-S-A-R, meaning Caesar, hearkening back to the days of Julius Caesar. And he becomes the equivalent of a living god. So he wasn't bad. His crazy son, however, is going to cause some problems. His son is Ivan IV, or Ivan the Terrible. Now, he likes the central authority that his dad has. He tries to eliminate the boyars from all important governmental positions, and he begins to reward his loyal servants or vassals with land in exchange for military service. So Russia is now starting feudalism way after everyone else did. So as feudalism is declining in Western Europe, in Russia, they're about 200 years behind. It's just starting to grow. And then, you know, in his 30s, something happens to Ivan the Terrible. In his late 30s, early 40s, and he begins to behave erratic. We have no idea what happened. He becomes violent. He gets these big nodules on his head. His hair falls out. And he will begin to use what I call the secret police, the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings, the Black Riders who chased Frodo. Well, he started them. And anybody who he thought was an enemy, he sicked them on. They'd be there during the day. The Black Riders would come at night, and you were gone in the morning. And he sicked them on any enemy, real or imagined. He became so paranoid that he even turned them on his own close supporters. Whether it was a tumor or lead poisoning, dude goes straight crazy. So finally, mercifully, he dies. And he leaves Russia in a period of civil war known as the Time of Troubles that will not end until 1613, when Michael Romanov will come to power, finding the Romanov Dynasty that also, along with the Ottomans, lasts until 1918 with its great ruler, Peter the Great. So here is a shot of the old capital of the Russian Orthodox Church. I love it. It's beautiful. St. Basil's Cathedral with the onion domes, the blue and the green, the yellow, the red, and the pink. And again, here is Madrasa going all the way over here. So that's Russian and the Gunpowder empires. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Take it easy. Exam is coming.